Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Velero community meeting / open discussion. Today is February 4th, 2020, and per usual, we got a bunch of status updates and then discussion topics. So let's dive into it. I'll share my screen so you all can see the meeting notes. And if you want to follow along at home, or in the chat rather, I'm going to link to the HackMD as well. All right, first up, we have Steve.
Yeah, so yesterday, spent part of the day getting ready to release the 1.3 beta. So for those who
We lost you, Steve. There we go.
Sorry, back. I got a spam call. For those who weren't here last week, so we have a number of bug fixes, particularly related to CRD backups and restores, but also a bunch of other things that have been merged into master since 1.2. And we decided that rather than waiting until the end of March or shipping a 1.2.1 release with some of those bug fixes, we just push out a 1.3 with all of the fixes and small features that we've gotten in since 1.2. So anyway, basically I've been getting the changelog and the docs and other things ready for the beta. So that's just about ready, and I'm planning to push that release out later today after this call. So that'll give everyone something to test for a while, and we'll remediate any issues there, and then get the official 1.3 out within, I'd say, the next week or two. One thing that we need to figure out is if we want to release new versions of the cloud provider plugins. I took a look at the commit history for these, and really the only substantive change to any of them was that we made that fix to the group that the container is run under. I don't think we necessarily need to push out new releases just for that change, because they've all been working fine as is. So I think it's probably fine to just wait on those until we have more changes. So that's the beta. And then I spent the afternoon yesterday looking at doing some refactoring in the restore code, specifically around some of the fixes we put in for CRD restores. So Nolan and I had talked some over the last couple of weeks about a few different approaches to the implementation of the code that we put in there. And so I'm just looking at doing some cleanup there that I think will make the code a little bit simpler and easier to maintain. So I'll probably continue working on that this week and hope to get a PR up, but that's not something that I'm planning to try and get into 1.3. And that's about all for me.
All right. Any questions on the 1.3 beta release here? On the refactoring? Question for you, Steve. So this is mostly a bug fix release. Do you think we should do a blog post about this one, or mainly point people to the release docs for it?
I think we'd be fine either way. I mean, we might be able to. Nolan wrote up a doc at the end of last week about the handful of CRD issues that we were dealing with. So could make sense to just take some of that and sort of put it into a blog post just to help kind of explain what was going on, because there were like 5 or 6 different interrelated issues that were all affecting CRD backups and restores. But beyond that, yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of smaller bug fixes and small features. So nothing major worth blogging about, but we'll see if Nolan's up for putting together something next week when he's back.
Yeah, that makes sense, I think. Just notifying people of the major changes, the major fixes. Okay, cool. Yeah. Let's do that then.
All right.
Awesome. Let's see, is Ashish on the call? No, he's not. So skip him for now. So Carlisia.
Right. So as of end of day yesterday, I was caught up with PR reviews. I'll continue on top for the rest of the week on community support. I spent some time mentally blocked with that CLI design. And but I am finally going to push the PR. The main update will be a set of details that in the meeting we had to talk about this. Example of a couple YAML files as consumed by customize, which will represent the plugins for the deployment. So each layer will be a separate thing for each of the plugins that can be used. So I'll have a couple of examples of those. And lastly, I still have to review the suggested CLIs that Steve listed on that PR, just to see if there is any idea we can incorporate here. But I think this is shaping up well the way it is, though. So a couple questions on the discussion. They are minor, but also significant. So when we get to that section, we can go over that. And that's it for me.
All right, awesome. And Nolan is on PTO this week, so no update there.
Hey everyone, this is Ashish. I was on the call, but I didn't know how to unmute myself from the phone, so now I figured that out.
Gotcha. Do you want to give a status update?
Yeah, so just coming back from community support from last week, I've had a few follow-ups items on the memory consumption issue that I think Anthony opened up. I don't know if he's on the call. So a quick update on that. I have some more troubleshooting steps on the issue. So if this is seen again, if folks can follow the troubleshooting steps and get back to us with more information, that would be super useful. And that was the only update I had.
Yeah, then, so this is Anthony. So right now I'm actually trying to reproduce following the steps that you have on the ticket. So once I finish following those steps, I'll update the issue.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And also just a quick follow-up. Does the experiment that I ran kind of simulate the workload that you were experiencing?
Yeah, so for us, I saw that in the details, there were no restores involved. So for us, we were doing backups as well as restores. And just on Friday, I was able to see that it seems like the memory jumps up when we're doing the restore a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll give it a try and try to break it down between. I suspect it's mostly on the restore, but let me do some more digging around today, and then I'll update the issue.
Sounds good.
Right, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashish, and thank you, Anthony. All right, I think we're ready to dive into the discussion topics. Carlisia, you want to start with yours?
Yeah, I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention. Myself and Nolan have made comments on that issue. So the question is, should we, instead of keeping the Helm chart, the Velero Helm chart in sync with the Velero, could we just, sorry, let me catch up here. Sort of, that one way or another, do the Velero CRDs in the way that if they are using Helm, they can just, for the CRD part, they would just run that and get that installed on the cluster instead of having that come from the chart, which will require continuous syncing after. Anybody has any? The idea, of course, is tempting, is appealing, because that synchronization requires, there is nothing to trigger it, so it requires us to be attentive to it.
Yeah, I would say, you know, I would want to look around, and as a few people said that some other projects take this approach. So I'm not personally familiar with them, but I'd definitely like to see, you know, what those other projects are and exactly how they approach it. I just, you know, with all this stuff, I'd prefer to stay, you know, more or less in line with how the rest of the community is doing it, recognizing that there's not just one way, but you know, if this is an approach other projects are taking and it seems somewhat mainstream, then I don't necessarily have any opposition to it. I just wouldn't want to turn us into a special snowflake.
Points. Other than if that's not the case, I don't see any downside to doing this either. So if anybody on the call later knows of anything, can jump an example there, would be helpful. I also take it upon myself to find some examples and see and get an idea if this is well known and well used. And then I guess we have to come up with a new command, because that Velero install is going away. A command especially just for that. And that's it.
Right. Do you want to go through your other discussion topics here, and then I can talk about mine?
Okay. Ashish made comments to the CLI install redesign PR, and that one is migration plan. So for migrating to the new set of commands, so the Velero install is going to go away, and we're going to have Velero init, Velero config. Yeah, that's it. The substitute the Velero install. So the question here is, should we name the new commands? Should we precede the names of the new commands with the word new, and then remove that once the deprecated? And that's going to happen with the next major versions 2.0, or not? So I the not, just I guess for personal preference, add the word new, because then we have to remove it, and just to add the commands like normally. Of course, the deprecation message will be in the commands to be in the install command, which will be deprecated, and any flag that will be deprecated. And my reasoning here is so there's no churn, there's no add remove later, and also the commands are very succinct. There's nothing that right now in the list of commands that looks like Velero init and Velero config. So there's chance for confusion there, that once, I mean, those commands are new, and they don't, if there was a possibility of confusion with existing commands, then that could be appealing to me, but it's not. But I'm open to hearing if people think otherwise. Anybody?
Ashish, you're unmuted.
So I made when I made that comment, I was thinking about how, like, say, gcloud puts out its commands. There are some hidden commands under gcloud beta blah command. So I was like trying to see if we can. That seemed like a good way to put kind of introduce new commands. So that was the thinking behind introducing those or making that comment.
Yeah, that was exactly what came to mind for me, was the gcloud beta subcommand. So, you know, I think if we're going to push the new commands out and call them beta, then I certainly think like nesting them under a beta command could make sense and could signal that, hey, these things aren't GA yet. But if you know, if they're GA, if they're ready to go when we push them out, I tend to agree with Carlisia that adding, you know, nesting them under the new command just means more change down the road, which is more work for both us and users. So given the arguments that Carlisia laid out, I'd probably, you know, prefer not to nest them in that case.
Yeah, that makes sense to me as well. I didn't know if we were going to have another install command or what, but from what Carlisia said, I agree.
Yeah, though, because we just have to make sure that they are GA when we release them. So I'd rather focus on that, making sure they not have to use any beta or new keyword. The next one is also a suggestion by Ashish that we use, first of all, my initial, for anyone who did read this PR, I instead use commands and I use flags, but they should have been, I used flags that should have been commands. So my bad there, and that might have caused confusion. And so this, one of these formats is absolutely the way to go. And I'm glad that people brought this up because it was then that I realized I was using flags. At any rate, do we format the commands in a way that it's Velero resource operation and then the flag, or operation resource and then the flag? Now, to jump ahead a little, Velero does have a process swapping the operation and the resource. So that is going to continue to be true for these. So we don't have to discuss that because we're going to do that. Now, the implication is that when we do Velero help, what is going to appear on the terminal is going to be either whatever is the first item. So that item be resource or should the item be operation? Thought about it, and I'm making a case here that Velero, when we do Velero help, what we see there are verb, in other words, operation. So verb, operation, or action. And the same thing with cube control. And in another case that I think essentially the list of verbs will always be shorter than the list of resources. So that help listing is going to be shorter if we just go with the verbs first. With that said, input is always welcome.
Carlisia, you were cutting out a little bit there, so I may have missed a couple of parts, but are you suggesting not supporting both forms going forward?
No, yeah, sorry about my internet. I'm gonna move next month. So I stopped worrying about it because it's not gonna get better. My internet here is not the best. I mean, it's both in my area. Anyway, no, the swapping is going to, but when we type a little help, whatever we get there in the listing is going to be either the verb or the resource. So that's why it makes a difference how we this up. Does it make sense?
So right now they both show up. So if you do Velero -- help, you see, backup, for example, as a subcommand for the Velero backup get, but you also see get as a subcommand if you're going to do Velero get backup.
All right, I stand corrected. I was actually wondering, is that listing both? And I thought no. Okay.
Yeah, I just ran it to check it.
So it doesn't.
Yeah, I think because if you look at how we're the way that we're supporting both is by wiring both up through Cobra, and so because of that,
yeah,
I think both forms show up in the help.
Okay, then I'm still going to go with the verb first because unless somebody says otherwise. I want to just for documentation purposes, when one takes precedence over another, I forget how the code is laid out. I think going first will make it compatible with the way cube control is laid out or organized. That makes no difference. Right? I don't see a difference.
I'm just thinking here, for Git, if you want to do something with Git, you do like a Git remote and then add. So you have the resource and then the operation. I think when doing a Git help or Velero help, I think in my mind, it makes more sense to have the resource first, because I want to do something with plugins, or I want to do something with config, I want to do something with backup, and I want to do Velero backup something instead of Velero get backup, because
and I agree with Jonas 100%. When you think about operations, the reason comes first, and then it's what you want to do. So my opinion too.
I also agree. But we are trying to follow kube control the way they organize it. And if you type just kube control help, you're going to see the basic commands are, excuse me, the basic commands: create, expose, explain, get, add, delete, deploy, rollout, scale, auto scale, and then a bunch of resource things. And then the troubleshooting is this logs, but then it's attached as a, so I guess it's all over the place. Advanced, apply, patch, replace, wait, convert, customize. It's mostly verbs.
It gets a little confusing in my mind with the verbs. So, if I
not disagree.
So like,
not disagree. No, so I personally am on board with you, but we do have this competing party, which is to be in line with what kube control does. But I don't think it makes any difference at all. Points. In our case, because we do the swapping, so.
Yeah. So when I let me give you my thinking when I made that comment. For when I was looking at it, it felt like not all resources expose all operations. There are some operations that are like very specific to, say, plugins. So we say plugins configure. That is what made me think that we can have resources as the first sub command, and then we can have like the operations that are specific to that resource as what follows. So that was my thinking when I made that comment.
Yeah. So at a high level, and I've seen that also work with across other CLIs like PowerShell, which is immensely popular in IT and automation, is that it makes a lot of sense to have the resource first, because if you want to see what applies to a resource, what operations you can do, what verbs, it makes sense to basically run that. So Velero, then plugins, and then type help, and then see what can you do with plugins. The way kubectl is, I see the need that you raise, Carlisia, to be consistent, but I think kubectl is not architected right. I think it's confusing, and even though it works and a lot of people are using it, it's not the easiest to use. It takes some getting used to. So having the model where the resource comes first and then you decide what operation you can do, it's more easy to consume, easier to understand, in my opinion. But we don't need to overthink this, so we can make a decision and move on.
No, I would suggest that we make a call at some points, but in this case, it's a mute point because we do the swap. They are going to be listed for better or for worse.
And Nolan is missing.
I was wrong. And initially, I thought only one or the other would be listed. Only the first one will be listed. Both get listed.
I mean,
but
we can also customize the help output. So if we want to actually, group things, like have the first section that shows the resources, and then an alternate section that shows the verbs, we could do that. Right now, we're just using the default help output, which just dumps everything alphabetically. But we could do that. Just for historical context, we initially only supported Velero resource verb. And we got a lot of requests from users to support the other way around as well. So I think, there are strong opinions on both sides. I'm not sure that one is more right than the other.
I mean, today we have it's Velero resource and then Verb, right?
It's both. We support both.
We support both.
Velero get backups or Velero backup get. Either one's valid.
Yeah, that's what I meant when this whole time I've been saying we swap both are supported and both are listed in the help right now. We can change the precedence.
I mean, if we support both, then we cannot make the change right now. Even though we're re-architecting the CLI and possibly we can break some things, I don't want us to break a lot of things. There's folks that have built automation and backup policies on top of Velero. So I didn't know we supported both. My mistake, I didn't understand that earlier, Carlisia. So in that case, unfortunately, we need to continue that design. Is there a huge cost to us to continue supporting both, given your CLI architecture? Okay, then I think we should probably do that.
The library we use makes it very simple. In my opinion, others might have different opinions. We can rethink the way we display the help. That's maybe we'll list resource first, but Steve just said we have a different section for an alternate way to do the same thing. But right now, everything gets both get displayed, if that makes sense.
Got it. Yeah, let's keep doing the same then. Makes a mess out of our resource model, but if we started down that path, we should continue. One day, by the way, when we actually ship Velero 2.0, when we can actually make backwards breaking API changes, then we can do it. Right, Jonas? I see you smiling.
Sounds great.
Velero 2.0
it's nice to have
this.
both, though.
Yeah, we need to stay with one.
I think it's nice having both. It's very user-friendly, I think.
We need to standardize eventually. Having both is, we should keep one. It will reduce our testing, will reduce our documentation, will reduce customer confusion. But
well,
right
not
now,
so much because I think that I think I don't want to be splitting hairs of this, but there's also a strong case to be made to stay within the culture of your tech stack. If everybody who uses Kubernetes uses kube control, and that's how kube control uses Verb first for most commands.
Yeah, and that choice might be that we actually follow what kubectl does. So that's fine. We don't need to make that decision today. So let's keep both right now and keep going.
Copy that.
And I need to run in 1 minute to go on a competing meeting.
All right. Yeah. Did you get the answer you were looking for, Carlisia? Cool. All right. Next up, I have something that I wanted to chat with you all about. I'm going to share my screen here so you can all see as well. So we've had a GitHub issue running for quite some time, asking Velero users how they use Velero. We also did a survey last year, and we're publishing a blog post about that very soon. And one thing to make this easier for us and for our community here on the call to kind of boast about how you are using Velero, I was suggesting creating an ADOPTERS.md file, similar to Linkerd and Harbor. So it's a simple adopters.md file that just lives in the root of the project folder, where people can PR themselves in with their name, a link to their organization. For Harbor, we went a little further. So for those who wanted, they can also add in how they are using Harbor, and I think this would be great. We've seen a bunch of really cool use cases. John, you talked about one last week. We've had Maya Data. We saw yesterday Banzai Cloud had a really cool one. So I want to make sure that we capture all of those, and then we can use the data here and actually feed into an adopters page on the site as well. But I don't want to ask our community to edit the site, but rather just PR themselves in here in a simple MD file. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Sounds good to me too. One downside is if nobody, and it looks like just we only have 3 users, would be sort of sad. We know that a lot of people, there's a lot more than that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
like I'd rather not have it listing only 3 companies.
Well, the point here is to populate it, right? I'm not going to populate all of it, but rather reach out to our awesome community members here on the call, and on GitHub and on Slack, to kind of feed that and make sure that everyone gets their logo in there, so they can boast about their usage essentially. All right, I'll get this set up as a PR later today, and we can roll with that. Sounds good? Cool. I got a bunch of minor changes that I'm gonna do to the site as well, so I'll put those in too. All right, that's it. I also just wanted to shout out Dylan Murray. He couldn't make the community meeting today, but he will have a design doc PR up by end of day tomorrow for this specific issue, talking about supporting custom CA bundles that I know we've talked about on the calls here a few times. So he's going to have a design doc up for that, which is going to be really awesome. So maybe we can talk about that in the community meeting next week.
Hi, Honors. This is Yun Chen, and I'm the LEMC engineer and work with Anthony. And I just want to talk something about you just mentioned about the adopters. Actually, I really agree with that because I just read about the Harbor adopter. And because I come from China, I saw that there are a lot of success stories. A lot of the company lists there are Chinese companies.
Yep.
And I think, if you, I work on Velero for several months, for about 6 months. So I think if Velero can, show something about this kind of success stories, I think this is a very good thing for Velero. I strongly agree with you.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, and just add in the success stories that you have in there.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, any other discussion topics or comments anyone want to make? All right, then we're diving into contributor shoutouts. Steve.
Yeah, we've gotten a bunch of PRs in the last week or so merged from community contributors. So I'll go through these. So first of all, Genting, who's made a few different PRs for us, but this past week we got a PR merge to support pruning unknown fields on our CRDs. This is basically setting the preserve unknown fields to false, which has the effect of removing fields that are not part of the schema. Part of the reason for this is that it makes upgrades to the V1 custom resource definitions API group smoother, because the true value is not actually supported in V1. So this is a good change and keeps us up to date with what's going on in the CRD world. So appreciate that change, Genting. And then C. Panato, another one of our ongoing contributors. Got a couple of PRs in this week. So the first one, so on the Velero restore create command, which can also be Velero create restore, for everyone's knowledge. If you use the from schedule flag, prior to this PR, that the schedule that you specify there had to exist in the API server. And this meant that if you were trying to do a restore from a schedule in another cluster, or if you were trying to do a restore from a schedule that no longer existed, but that still had backups in your cluster, the validation would basically prevent that from happening. So Carlos changed this code to, instead of actually checking for the existence of the schedule API object, it would use a label selector on backups to see if there were any backups with the schedule name label, which essentially allowed us to support both of those use cases that I just mentioned, not working previously. So another nice little feature to have. So appreciate the change, Carlos. And then the other one is from Carlos was, it's kind of a tech debt item, but there are some new topology labels that go on persistent volumes, basically for labeling the region and zone that, that persistent volumes are in. And the Velero code was previously using the beta versions of these. Carlos updated to use the GA versions of the labels by default, and only if they're not found to fall back to looking for the beta versions. So this should keep us up to date with the evolution of these labels, but also keeps us backwards compatible as well. So another nice one to have. Thanks a lot, Carlos. And then we had a bug fix from Cone, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure this contributor's name off the top of my head. Brad Cone. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Apologies if not. Who ran into a bug with Restic. I can't remember if it was backups or restores. It looks like backups. And we basically had a bug that wasn't handling an empty output from the Restic binary correctly. So he logged the issue and then was able to actually get a fix in, and Ashish helped make sure that it was good to go. So he's been able to test this, and it solved his issues. So really appreciate the bug fixes, and it's great when when folks can sort of help fix their own issues that they're encountering. So we really appreciate it. And the last one that just got merged yesterday, Shane Utt added support for ARM and ARM64 container builds. So we've had the infrastructure, the plumbing in place for doing multi-arch container builds for a little while now. And so we know that we've had folks who are interested in ARM and ARM64 builds. So we finally got that support merged. And so if you look at the master tag of the Velero container image, you'll see that it supports AMD, AMD64, ARM, ARM64, as well as power architecture. So I think we're in a pretty good state here, and appreciate the contribution. And that'll make it out into the 1.3 release.
So that could be another big portion of the 1.3 blog post then as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Cool. That was the last shout out. Anyone else have anything to add to the call today? All right, then that's it for today. Thank you all for joining in. And yeah, if you have any questions, you know where to find us on Slack. And with that, have a fantastic rest of the week, everyone. Bye.
Bye.